Welcome everyone. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Service Delegated Committee. Before we commence the meeting, I request that all mobile telephones are turned off or switched to silent. My name is Councillor Rob Baillieu and I chair this committee. I'll start by introducing my fellow councillors. Seated to my left at the horseshoe table in the council chamber are Councillors Lisa Hollingsworth, Councillor Shima Ibuki, Councillor Wes Galt, Councillor Mick Nolan, Councillor Felicity Sinfield. And on the opposite side, we have Councillor Victor Franco, our Deputy Mayor, Councillor Mal Osborne-Smith, Councillor Sophie Tournay, our Mayor, and on the screen behind me, we have Councillor John Friend Pereira. I also acknowledge our CEO, Mr. Philip Storer to my right, and our Coordinator of Governance, Ms. Kirsten Ritchie to my left. There are other officers in attendance tonight and they'll be introduced as they present their reports. The purpose of the Service Delegated Committee is to deal with issues relating to the provision of human and physical services and Council's infrastructure. For those in the gallery presenting this evening, when we come to the agenda item, it will be introduced by an officer. I will then call you one by one to come forward and address Council. I'll ask speakers to sit at the top of the horseshoe table and I will invite those against the officer's recommendation to speak first, followed by those in favour. When making a submission, you are requested to present your viewpoint clearly and concisely on why you agree or disagree with the proposal. You may suggest an alternative approach which will satisfy your concerns. Please do not repeat what earlier speakers have said and keep the discussion focused on relevant issues. There is a limit of 3 minutes for each speaker and that includes councillors. As chairperson, I reserve the right to vary that, and at the 2.5 minute mark, I will ring a bell which will indicate you have 30 seconds remaining and you need to conclude your presentation. After you've spoken, please remain at the table while I ask if any councillor has a question for you. For those in the gallery this evening, I would like to take this opportunity to remind you to extend due courtesy and respect to each other and to the committee as a whole. This includes remaining quiet while others are addressing the meeting and not disrupting the decision-making process of the committee. And just to finish, I would like to encourage all submitters, officers and councillors to speak directly into the microphone. This will ensure that everyone can clearly hear the discussion. We move on to apologies. Ms. Ritchie, are there any apologies for this evening?
Thank you, and through you, Chair, there is one apology, Councillor Pattis.
Fantastic. We now move on to the adoption and confirmation of the minutes of the Service Delegated Committee meetings held on the 16th of June 2025. Councillors, can I please have a motion to adopt and confirm the minutes? Councillor Ibuki.
Happy to move the adoption of the minutes, thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hollingsworth.
So second, thank you.
I'll now put, councillors, is anyone opposed? There is no one. I will now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. Declaration of conflict of interest of any councillor or council officer. Councillors and council officers, are there any conflicts of interest that you wish to foreshadow for the matters on the agenda tonight? There are none. Our first presentation will be item 3.1, and Abdullah Ahmed, Manager Asset and Capital Planning, will be presenting.
We've just got an additional one, so it's 7, 5.
Thank you. I'm pleased to introduce the Road Materials Policy. This policy has been developed through a process of technical review and community consultation. It represents an important step forward in ensuring the materials used in the construction and renewal of our roads are safe, sustainable and cost effective and respectful of our city's valued heritage. The Road Materials Policy will replace 2 existing legacy policies, the Bluestone Policy 2010 and the Unmade Lanes Policy 2013. At its core, the policy outlines how and when we use different road materials, including asphalt, concrete and bluestone, based on clear criteria, including heritage status, life cycle costs, functionality and safety. Community consultation was held in 2024. The policy was available on the Engage Boroondara platform as advertised in March and April. Boroondara platform bulletin along with the fortnightly feed, approximately 38,000 on the mailing list, along with 2 on-site workshops in Camberwell streets. 126 responses were submitted through our Engage Boroondara platform, along with 29 written submissions. A total of 14 responses were received to retain original bluestones in all areas. For bluestones, where there is heritage citation with full channel exposure, full bluestone curb and channel profiles will be retained, respecting its heritage significance. Where there is heritage citation with partial channel exposure, the channel will be restored to the wider exposed channel width for the full length of the reconstruction. In other locations, without heritage citation, a single curb and channel stone approach will be taken, striking a balance between safety, cost, and character. Regarding the bluestone pitches, safety is a key priority. While some argue that cyclists typically ride in the centre of the road due to parked cars, this isn't always the case. In many narrow, low parking streets, particularly at intersections, bends, near driveways, cyclists and pedestrians naturally move towards the edge of the roadway where rough, multi-picture bluestone channels can present a safety risk, including trip hazards, wheel traps, and unpredictable surfaces. Furthermore, this is heightened particularly for mobility impaired residents during wet conditions. For concrete roads, the policy proposes a clear distinction. Concrete roads identified in heritage citations will be retained in concrete. In other areas, concrete roads will transition to asphalt at the end of their life cycle. This approach reflects both heritage significance and the cost implications of full concrete renewal. Each council has different infrastructure profiles, heritage, community expectations, and budget priorities. While we monitor and learn from other councils, our policy reflects what's appropriate for Boroondara, preserving heritage where it's sited, improving safety, ensuring financial sustainability across a much larger road network. This is a balanced policy, one that acknowledges Boroondara's rich heritage, the expectations of our community, and the practical realities of modern asset management. In closing, I want to thank the residents who provided feedback and the staff who contributed to the technical assessments. Thank you.
Seven people have indicated they wish to make a submission on this matter. 5 are against the recommendation in the report. 1 is in support of the recommendation, and 1 has not yet made up their mind. Once I've announced your name, please sit at the top of the horseshoe table. If a submitter is not present when the name is called, we will move on to the next speaker. I'll remind submitters there is a strict limit of 3 minutes. Please commence the submission with your name and the suburb in which you reside. Our first speaker tonight will be Greg Ball, followed by Christina Brannigan, and then Victor Hudson.
Gregory Ball, Baldwin North. I want to make some comments on concrete roads versus asphalt roads in terms of environmental and health impacts, economics, annual refurbishment, and aesthetics. Also, I want to make some comments on bluestone curbs and picture channels. First, in reading the road materials policy consultation, cement concrete roads are presented as a poor alternative to asphalt, which I think is unfortunate. Concrete is widely used, with 60% of US highways being concrete, and I understand the concrete road is fast becoming the default road type in India, both in urban and rural areas. Modern concrete road construction techniques produce low maintenance, durable roads lasting twice as long as asphalt roads, and often with a lifetime cost less than that of asphalt. We cannot compare modern concrete roads with concrete roads constructed a century ago. I find concrete roads to be aesthetically appealing. Much, if not most, of my driving has been on concrete roads. As for the environmental and health impact, asphalt is composed of about 5 to 12% bitumen derived from petroleum. Asphalt gives off volatile organic compounds during production and laying, and asphalt contains heavy metals, which can be released during road wear. Asphalt particles can pollute the air, soil, and groundwater. Also, asphalt has a low albedo of about 0.05 to 0.1, reflecting only about 5 to 10% of the light it receives, leading to high pavement temperatures in summer. Council has 567 kilometres of roads, rehabilitates approximately 9 kilometres of roads annually, and estimates asphalt roads require resurfacing about once every 30 years. I calculate the council is only rehabilitating about half the length of road annually required to maintain council roads in their current condition. It appears to me that council might need to invest significantly more in road refurbishment. The lifetime cost of both modern concrete roads and asphalt roads should be carefully evaluated to choose the best alternative in each situation, while balancing economics with environmental and health considerations. With respect to bluestone pitches and intersections, it seems to me an alternative worthy of consideration is to use sawn bluestone curbs and gutter stone to avoid problems encountered by cyclists and pedestrians. The City of Melbourne makes extensive use of this construction. Bluestone is not a limited resource. Victoria has bluestone quarries, and bluestone is often used in construction projects.
Thank you, Greg. Councillors, are there any questions for our speaker? Councillor Nolan.
Thanks for your presentation, Greg. And hearing a number of advantages, which I think I've heard before, but good to hear again, and being more reflective and no or less volatiles for concrete compared to bitumen. Have you got anything or done any, read anything or have any data on the carbon associated with manufacture of concrete / cement versus asphalt roads?
Well, in the production of cement, there is a lot of carbon dioxide given off. And some of that, only a small amount, is actually absorbed during the curing of the concrete. So that's one downside of concrete when current production techniques are used for cement. That's why there's a big push, as many are aware, to try and produce green concrete.
Thank you. I think, yeah, we might, it's given me some food for thought, so I appreciate you speaking on this.
And behind me on the screen, Councillor John Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Ball, you said you have reached the conclusion that Council is only undertaking half, as I understood it, the maintenance of roads on an annual basis that you believe is necessary. How did you reach that calculation? And are you asking that the road maintenance programme be doubled?
To answer the last part first, yes, it appears to me the road maintenance program should be doubled. And the figures I used are Appendix A of the Road Management Plan 2021 says that Council has 567 kilometres of roads. Page 5 of the Services Delegated Committee agenda for tonight states that asphalt roads require resurfacing about once every 30 years in Melbourne. And on page 10 of the Services Delegated Committee agenda for tonight's meeting, there's the statement that Council is rehabilitating approximately 9 kilometres of road annually. So 9 kilometres times 30 years is 270 kilometres of road would be replaced during the lifetime of the road, and that's only less than half of the 567 kilometres of roads.
Thank you. Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thanks for your presentation, Greg. I enjoyed it and learnt a bit myself. 2 questions, if I may. What's your understanding of the lifespan of modern concrete roads? I'll call it modern in terms of newer materials and techniques. That's the first question. And the second question is, do you have an opinion on the benefits or not of the colour that different concretes can bring to our environment?
Okay. First part, generally in the literature, concrete is regarded as having a lifetime double that of asphalt. And there's some variation in the life of asphalt. It's usually quoted in the literature as being between 10 years and 30 years, and concrete is usually quoted as being between 40 to 60 years. But the lifetime, reliably in the literature, concrete has a lifetime of at least double that of asphalt. And as for the colour, I can only recall concrete roads being the one colour. I don't think I've seen them a different colour, so I really can't address that.
I guess by that I meant, do you see benefits in being able to deliver roads that are of a different colour than the black or dark bitumen that is or asphalt that is the typical?
One disadvantage concrete has is that it reflects more ultraviolet light. So if a person's outside without any eye protection, it could be more dangerous than asphalt. If there is a coating or some substance that can be put in the concrete to reduce the reflection of ultraviolet light, that would be a benefit.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Tawney.
Thank you, Mr. Ball. Just a question about just trying to understand what you're asking for in terms of concrete roads. So the report talks about 500 metres a year needing to be reconstructed, concrete roads. So you're saying rather than going from concrete to asphalt, going from concrete to concrete?
Yes, that's part of it. I was also addressing the other 9 kilometres.
Yeah, but in terms of you prefer them to stay concrete, you were saying you like concrete roads. So do you think, and I mean that preference I think would cost an extra $200,000 a year, because it looks like the difference between going from concrete to concrete and concrete to asphalt is about $40,000 per 100 metres.
I haven't looked at the table today, so I
So,
can't.
but that's what it would cost. Do you think that's a reasonable cost for the community to spend retaining concrete roads as they need to be renewed?
Oh, I think we can answer that with the other part of my presentation.
Yep.
And that is, irrespective of what the existing surface is, concrete roads are competitive with asphalt roads. That's the point I'm trying to make tonight.
Yep.
So is there an additional cost to the community? I don't believe there is.
Because you say over a longer period of time it would pay back. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Greg. I think that exhausts our questions. Our next speaker is Christina Brannigan.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Christina Brannigan. I live in Camberwell. I'm speaking tonight. I don't support the officer's recommendation, and my proposal would be that a decision is made in particular with regards to any bluestone guttering and lanes, for that to wait for after a heritage study to be undertaken. It seems as though about half of the roads in Burundara, as far as I can see, have got some kind of bluestone on them, so it's a key part of the identity of Burundara. So it would seem to us to make sense that the most significant places should be assessed first and then a decision taken about what to do with the bluestone laneways and gutterings. So in terms of the issues that I wanted to raise tonight, really they are that the community's had very little time to digest and prepare a response to the officer's recommendation. I think only a certain number of people were contacted and they only had information on the 8th and the 7th. In fact, I only found out about it today, but on the 8th and the 7th, people who undertook the survey, I believe, were sent an email, but that's really only given them 3 to 4 business days to try and digest quite a meaty document. And secondly, I think the community's probably been confused and led to believe via the heritage strategy draft and indeed the survey, if councils and officers have gone online, the survey for the heritage strategy really does imply that the council at least is quite seriously considering a bluestone heritage study. So I think that would have given most people in the community the idea that this wasn't going to happen quite so quickly, this decision. So I would ask, it seems to me it would be much more sensible to wait to that decision. Are you going to do a heritage study? And if you are, wait until that's been done with regards to bluestones. I'd also question whether this is a best practice approach to, for a city that's got so much bluestone guttering and laneways. Many councils do undertake a heritage study first and work out the most significant places, and then they decide how they're going to look after them and which ones they're going to conserve and which not. I'd also query, you know, could officers tonight perhaps give us an indication of exactly how many accidents there are attributed to bluestone curbways? I'm probably using the wrong terminology, excuse me, but how many accidents are there if it's a safety issue? And could we understand how many streets actually would be left with their original bluestone gutterings and how many laneways we might lose as a consequence of the proposal tonight? I think those are my key issues and proposals. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions for Christina? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Brandigan, for your presentation. One thing you said raised an eyebrow. So are you aware of several members of community that didn't realise this subject matter was tabled tonight? Could you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Well, I can only assume that perhaps those people who participated in the survey got an email last Tuesday. I was overseas, wasn't able to participate, but had put in a submission. So I wasn't informed that this was happening tonight. So I'm imagining that the people who participated in the survey perhaps were informed, but only last Tuesday, which really, given, you know, it seemed as though there would have been at least 200 people, perhaps by the sounds of it, who participated in survey petitions and other submissions. It's not really very much time for everybody to have had time to consider this. It's a pretty meaty document. I think even looking at the executive summary, it's not really an executive summary, I would say. It's, you've got to read the whole thing, and it's actually really detailed and quite confusing. So I don't think that's reasonable for the community. And also, as I've said, if you actually look at the draft heritage strategy, it quite clearly says in the action plan and the strategy that council may consider a bluestone heritage strategy. So it really seems a bit egg before the chicken, or chicken before the egg, sorry, to be making this decision now. And the survey for the heritage strategy actually asks you whether you think it's a priority to do a bluestone heritage study or not, if you'd like to go online.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Berkey.
Thank you, Ms. Brannigan, for your presentation. So if I am understanding it correctly, your intent is, of course, that we don't lose any streets worthy of preservation under heritage. What if there was some way where we could maintain the streets and review the heritage of that street if it needed, if it needed work? I'm not sure how long it will take or when we have scheduled the review of streets across Boroondara for heritage consideration.
So is your question, perhaps would it be okay to wait?
Your main intention is not to lose any streets that need to be redone if if they are worthy of heritage consideration. I guess if council officers can come up with a way that we can look at the heritage merit of a street at the time that we are looking to, redo it, would that be satisfactory to you?
I'm not sure. I guess, would that mean that a heritage consultant would assess that street? Is that they're the only people really who can determine, I think, heritage significance of
I think it's worth asking council officers around what a process might look like. What I'm trying to understand is if there are streets that council has identified that need to be, resurfaced or need to be looked at. We don't want to hold up those streets. Until a review of streets across Boroondara is completed, because we don't know what that timeline will be.
I can see that's tricky. Yeah, I'm not sure what the
tricky,
solution is, but yeah, I hear what you're saying. I guess our concern as a heritage group would be that we might miss some heritage significant streets if we did that.
Yeah. So I think
it might be better to fast track the Bluestone study, perhaps.
So what I think would be great is, whether you would be open to some sort of consideration where council can meet the needs of people whose streets have deteriorated and need, to be brought up to better standard, at the same time looking at the heritage value of those streets as well.
I'm not sure. I think I would prefer to see an assessment done first by a heritage expert, to identify where the most significant places are.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, I just worry that things would get lost, with that kind of approach.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you, Christine. And my question is on a similar vein to Councillor Abuki. And I was going to ask you, how would you propose that we manage those streets in the interim between now and the time a Bluestone laneway assessment is done, which you'll appreciate with the gap studies can be some years and at some considerable expense? Have you got any suggestions as to how to manage those streets which need to be repaired in the interim? Perhaps you've already answered that, perhaps with some prompting on the other side of the horseshoe. That was the first question. And the second question is, do you, the level required for a heritage citation is quite a high bar, and do you envisage some differing level of heritage protection for our streets that may give rise to saving bluestone curbs without them formally being registered and listed in a heritage citation? That's two questions. Thank you.
I would imagine that if in this report, if I read it correctly, it says that perhaps half of our streets have got bluestone curbing. I think that's what I read. So that would suggest
523 kilometres of bluestone and 2/3 have.
Wow. Okay, so it's a lot, isn't it? So that's a huge part of our character as a city. So therefore, I would assume that there are probably a lot of streets that aren't in a heritage precinct that have still got some original bluestone guttering, and lots of laneways. There are lots of wonderful bluestone laneways. So I'm trying to remember what your question was.
My two questions were, one, what should we do in the interim between now and perhaps a laneway and street review? And secondly, do you have any advice to us on a differing level of heritage protection that falls somewhat below the formalities required for a formal heritage citation of a street?
I'm not familiar enough with bluestone heritage studies and really how that works. I've not been involved with one before, only seen the ones that George has shown us. So I don't think I can answer that question, but it does sound as if, doesn't it, there would be a lot of heritage bluestone areas that wouldn't be in heritage precincts, potentially. In terms of what to do in the interim, I don't think that's something I can answer, other than as I already have. I think it would be preferable to fast track perhaps the bluestone study. Yeah, other cities have obviously done it, so.
Councillor Franco.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you, Ms. Brannigan. Pardon me. I'd just like some clarifications. We're talking about heritage streets, and conventionally under our planning system we talk about a heritage overlay, which primarily relates to the properties along the street, and it can extend further to address further issues. So when we're talking about reviewing the heritage merit of a street, we're talking about doing a whole study or just purely looking at the bluestone component?
Now, my understanding is that what's being discussed as a potential is a study that would just look at the bluestones in the streets and the laneways. Yeah, there are a number of Victorian cities who've done that and have a heritage study and strategy for their bluestone laneways and gutterings.
And do you have any thoughts on the consideration that council has undertaken heritage gap studies and heritage studies across pretty much the entire municipality, in many cases going street by street, and the heritage overlays have already been in place? There's not really a lot of immediate scope for heritage overlays, but so it's the, do you have any comment on that, or looking at the...
My understanding is that if council were to undertake a bluestone heritage study, it wouldn't entail a heritage overlay. I'm sure officers would be able to clarify. It wouldn't mean there'd be a heritage overlay placed over those streets unless they had been identified as places that should go in the heritage overlay because of predominantly their housing.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're not talking about any more heritage overlays, I don't think. Perhaps the officers could clarify. My understanding is no, it's about identifying the areas in the city where the bluestone is of most heritage significance, the bluestone, on the streets, on the laneways, and having a strategy and a plan for looking after those. I mean, I think if we look around the world, we can see that lots of places do look after their cobblestones, their bluestones. It's not a weird thing to do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I believe that exhausts our questions.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Victor Hudson, and Victor will be followed by Graham Lovell and George Demetrius.
My name is Victor Hudson. I live in Hawthorne East. My wife and I are fortunate enough to live in Neve Street, Hawthorne East, which has a fantastic bluestone spoon drain, probably one of the best in Victoria. It was rebuilt by council in 2009. The original one had probably lasted over a century. I would disagree with the findings of the proposition put up by council to remove or to replace worn spoon drains with a one up, one down curb and channel. The spoon drain is very efficient in its handling of stormwater. It's very kind to motorcar rims, which any curb and channel is not. And being made of bluestone, it overcomes the cost issue, which is high on council's agenda, I'm sure. The previous speaker, the first speaker, spoke about differentiation in cost between bluestone or between concrete and asphalt of a 50% variation. With bluestone, we have the most sustainable construction material on earth. Nothing wears it away other than steel tyres on old drays and wagons. We got rid of them a while ago, and we now have rubber tyres which do not wear bluestone. So the other thing is so that's the technical side. The bluestone spoon drain is efficient. It's inexpensive over its life because it doesn't wear away. And then we get to the heritage issue. Our home has a heritage overlay, and in that document, it mentions the heritage value of the spoon drain in the street. I would be very disappointed if that heritage reference was overruled by the current report being discussed. So my conclusion is stick with what we've got. It'll last forever. It works very well. It fits in with the heritage of our city and particularly of our street. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions for Victor? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr Hudson, for your presentation. When you talked about Neve Street, the actual street itself, the road mentioned in the citation, does it form part of the citation with the Heritage Precinct?
I don't know because I haven't seen the citation. I saw it about 3 days ago and only read the recommendation.
Yeah, look, thank you. I'm sure the officers will be able to respond to that question at the end of presentations. Thank you.
Councillor Nolan.
Thank you, Mr Hudson. So can you just confirm for me what I heard? I think I heard you say was that Neve Street is, I believe it is, heritage citation, and the officer's recommendation in the report on page 12 is that that will retain full channel exposure, retain full bluestone curb and channel profile, respecting its heritage significance. So outside of heritage citation, that's the time when the recommendation is to go to single picture on the curbstone and the channel. So are you in support of what's in the report, therefore?
I'm not in support of removing a spoon drain and replacing it with a curb and channel, which is a one up, one down.
Even outside heritage citation, is that what you're saying?
But the heritage document I have for our property supports the spoon drain.
Thank you.
Councillor Franco.
Thanks. My question's a bit like Councillor Hollingsworth. Thank you, Mr Hudson, for presenting. I take it given that Neve Street is not part of a heritage overlay, I take it your home has a significantly graded individual property overlay?
Yes. Yes.
And would you, at some point, be willing to share with, at least with me or with other councillors who might be interested, a copy of the citation that you're referring to, or the comments where the street and the spoon drain is referenced?
I think that's already been done previously.
Okay.
But yes, perfectly happy.
And so the context for you is you've got an individually significant graded property, you've got a bluestone spoon drain there, but it's not protected because of the lack of the heritage overlay for the street as a whole.
Correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you for your presentation. Just a quick question about the mood of others about Bluestone curb and channels. Can you give us, around the horseshoe here, any feelings amongst the community more broadly as to whether your views are just your own or whether they're more widely held?
If I understand you correctly, my opinion on Bluestone curb and channel, where they exist, they should be retained. That is the heritage of our city. I've lived in this city for a long, long time, and I think it is just part of what makes up what was Camberwell and what was Hawthorn and what was Kew. And I don't see any reason to move away from bluestone as a building material or construction material in this drainage area, particularly because of its longevity associated with the heritage as well.
Thank you, Victor. I think that concludes our questions. Our next speaker is Graham Lovell.
Good evening, I'm Graham Lovell and I also live in Eve Street in Hawthorn East. I'd just like the first illustration, please, yes. This is St Andrew Street in Camberwell, and as you can see there, we have a situation where bluestone gutter with 3 bluestones on the base has been taken out, and if we can just go to the next one, please. And of course, it's been replaced by one up, one down, standardised gutter. So it's just very disappointing from a heritage viewpoint to see this happening without any real sort of consideration that's happening right through the city. I just feel that Burundara is not valuing the heritage that well, it's been achieved, the legacy that's come through from years and years ago, and this is happening. Move next, please. I just point out here, this is the start of, was it Anderson Road and Burke Road there, and bluestone has been put there, and the crossovers are mentioned in the executive report, executive summary, whatever it is, and in this situation, these were actually done in the mid-90s to control traffic. In fact, Anderson Road has 7 traffic obstacles as you go through, one after the other. Anyone driven there will know. Next, please. And similarly, there's Vernion Grove coming in there, and again, just trying to control the traffic and stop these streets being used as rat runs in the peak hour particularly. Thank you. Just move on to you've seen these photos before, so I'll go very quickly through these, but just a reminder that this is what's happened with the spoon drains in Neve Street, and Council did an absolutely superb job in doing this, and it looks fantastic. You can see there number 1 and number 3 Neve Street. Number 1 is heritage classified. Again, it has in its heritage statement, which was prepared by Meredith Gould, tick the box for significant curb and channels as part of it. And there's 2 other properties in the street that have the similar. Next, please. Another photo of 1 and 3 Neve Street. Next, please. And this is Islands Dairy, which also has a heritage classification for the front there on Vernion Grove in the corner of Neve Street. Next, please. This is 7 Neve Street, and it's another example of a beautiful house set off by superb spoon drain. Next. And this is 19 Anderson Road. And again, that has heritage classification, and as mentioned before, and again, looking the part, and I think one more, please. And again, this is number 1 and number 3 Neve Street, and they have a fantastic looking angle there. My concern primarily is that with the policies as proposed, not only in, say, 100 years' time when these are the gutters need replacing, will they be replaced with 1 up, 1 down? But the situation is, as it stands, is that no one else in the city will have the opportunity to have a development of this type in the future, and that's very concerning. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Councillors, are there any questions for Graham? There are none. Thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is George Demetrius. George will be followed by Margaret Maclock and Glenys Jones.
George Demetrius, Hawthorn. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and council officers. Tonight, I would like to talk about Bluestone Heritage best practice and how it could be applied to Boroondara. More and more Victorian councils have recognised the uniqueness of our Bluestone heritage and the need to protect it. A leaflet produced by Wardos Council celebrating their Bluestone heritage and the pride they have in it is being distributed to you now. But every Bluestone policy has always struck a balance between preservation and the needs of the wider community. Up ahead, you can see Glenroe Bluestone policy objectives. Objective number 2, to balance the need for safe access and environmental sustainability. Whitehorse, which we share a eastern border with, had a one-picture policy throughout the 1990s. Helen Lardner was employed to provide her opinion on one Bluestone pictures based on the Borough Charter. She stated clearly, this type of construction has no historical significance. The National Trust policy of retaining a diversity of picture types in a letter to Wardos Council. Crossovers constructed in the 1980s and 1990s as rumble strips. Cyclists have complained from the time when they're writing letters to the Progress Press in the 1980s that they did not want these. This is not heritage and should be removed. Port Phillip Council guidelines on Bluestone, only to be used in heritage infrastructure, not for new developments. Bluestone and cycling safety. City of Melbourne Bluestone policy. Rathdown Street, Carlton. You can see the Bluestone, you can see the laneway. Undamaged Bluestone does not have to be removed. 3 taken out, 3 can be put back. Merribeck policy in replacing damaged Bluestone pictures. Tender documents, City of Boroondara asking for Bluestone. This could easily be used to ask contractors to supply Bluestone to the City of Boroondara. Until Boroondara gets its own Bluestone heritage study, as the one they're advertising for Whitehorse, we need to invoke interim measures, providing...
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up. Sorry, George.
Yeah, we'll do. Above is what I propose should be the policy until we get the heritage study. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions for George? There are none. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Margaret.
Thank you. I hadn't intended to speak tonight. I'm the person who said I wasn't sure about where I stood on the Bluestones. So Margaret Mallock, and I live in Hawthorn East, in an area that has quite a lot of bluestone laneways, and one of my joys in my life is to walk home from the street, from shopping, along as many laneways as I can, and thoroughly enjoy it. But I do wish that they were better maintained. There's a bit of work to be done there. I'd like to follow on from what George has said And I'd only read the report this afternoon. I found out about the meeting a couple of days ago and decided to come. I've been away for a while, and so I'd missed out on any earlier correspondence. I am fascinated that we have 2/3 of our area with bluestones, and I would like to think that we would be able to have an interim situation where there is a protection for those 2/3 and work being able to be done on them, where they're not necessarily tied to being in front of a heritage-listed property, so that the bluestone curbing itself is what's important. It doesn't have to be in a heritage precinct, and it doesn't have to be linked to a mansion or a really, a very historical home. It's important in its own self. I can appreciate the documentation that emphasises cost concerns, supply concerns, trends about what's required in the way of roads, etc. And it's true that there is an emphasis on coming on in green concrete. But to me, and having been to a few of these meetings about aspects of heritage, once it's lost forever. And a single, and I didn't even know what a picture was before this meeting, but I thought once it's lost, it's gone. And then you've lost the culture and the history and the attraction of the area, and it just becomes really boring, and who would want to live there? Whereas if we can protect what we have, rather than whittling away heritage gradually, which is what appears to be happening, then, so that's what I would like to recommend, that we have some kind of interim pathway to protect the bluestones and to celebrate our history all the time, rather than getting rid of it holus bolus by really boring alternatives. Sorry, but thanks very much.
Councillors, are there any questions for Margaret? It's okay, Margaret. There's no questions. Thank you for...
That's great. Thank you very much, then.
And our final speaker tonight is Glenys Jones.
Good evening, councillors. My name's Glenys Jones and I live in Glen Iris. I'd like to thank the officers for the work that they've done on this and for meeting the community on site, because I personally found taking the time to meet with the officers to understand this in depth was very valuable. I live in an overlay area, a heritage overlay with bluestone curbs, curb and channel, 1 up and 3 on the roadway. 2 are asphalted and have been for at least 35 years, which is how long we've lived in that house. Crossovers have been mentioned. Bluestones should not be used on shared path or pedestrian crossovers as a purely safety issue, an issue with their function is to facilitate safe access. Mortar joints wear down when used in the crossovers, and they create wheel traps and tripping hazards. Yes, the bluestone will last forever, and a lot of these crossovers that they've put in recently with the sawn bluestone are replacing the very smooth transition pram ramps, and that should not be happening. So regardless of whether these are sawn or not, we're going to have that issue, and ongoing maintenance when there's a simple solution. Roads such as Summerhill Road in Glen Iris have minimal crossing pedestrian ramps to cross the road. So to facilitate crossing, you have to use driveways in their absence. And it begs the question, should there be any bluestones in the driveways? And I'm thinking in respect of these breaking down and prams and wheelchairs with the small jockey wheels which can get trapped. Smooth concrete transition ramps between the footpath and the roadway is the safest long-term option. This doesn't mean you're tearing up the bluestones, but it's making our council safe. We're not a museum, we need to actually function. Footpaths at schools are generally inadequate and should be widened to safely cater for the mix of pedestrians, prams, bikes and dogs that travel to and from school morning and afternoon. This has the potential to reduce congestion and increase the uptake of healthy active transport. Tree-friendly materials such as used in Elizabeth Street in Glen Iris should be used where widening is in the tree root zone. Laneways in Boroondara are grossly underutilised. We really need to get a laneway strategy that will identify the potential access to local amenities. Drains, we've got these new steel grilled drains jutting out onto the road now, and they need to be avoided in bike lanes and areas frequented by cyclists. BBUG members have expressed concern about them, noting that cars are getting wider and we have a limited space on our road and that we have to share. And drivers are not always aware that a cyclist might be deviating around that drain. I watched a delivery driver here tonight and he was hovering right in the line of those drains. On a personal note, I would prefer to have a smooth transition driveway. Last year we paid council $600 for an asphalt fix for our driveway to stop our car bottoming out. And we're not alone. Again, we need to focus on function. We need smooth transitions from asphalt roadway to the footpath. If I could just also, Glen Ira was mentioned in the laneways. They have a laneway project where they are developing laneways with art installations, and they're really friendly places that people actually want to use. They're not these sort of, and if it means putting in a cut blue stone to make it more accessible, then that's a way we should be looking at. And as we move to increase density in Boroondara, we need to utilise them.
I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up.
Yep,
I've given you an extra minute and a half, noting that you're the only speaker in favour.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions for Glenise? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Ms Jones, for your presentation. I'm also looking at an email submission that you provided earlier, and one of the, or some of the photos that you put in your submission with regard to the drains that go into the roadway, as typically the older drain system would be cut in under the nature strip.
Yes.
And a new method of drain installation is where there's a metal grate going out into the road. Are you aware of any municipality that may use a similar type of drainage design that perhaps has a different metal grate that is more palatable for bikes?
No, I'm not. And part of the issue is how much of the roadway that they consume. When it's wet, the leaves gather on them, and so I have safety issues about them. They're supposed to be safe, but I personally wouldn't want to ride across one. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And if I may, just a quick follow-up. I do know with climate mitigation and, potential flood and drainage, the wider drain has been designed to help water be removed quicker off the roads. But I'm just always, like you, interested of technologies and advancements.
And, I appreciate there are areas where that's really a priority to have the roads not flooding or the houses not flooding. But where that's not the priority and we have bike lanes and a lot of bike usage, we really should be avoiding those or looking at an alternative that's safer, that will share that space with everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Abuki.
Oh, thank you very much for your presentation, Margaret. I think, how do you suggest we balance the value that people place on laneways with safety and access?
I think it's a matter of evaluating the laneways and prioritising those that are going to provide access. There's some that have virtually no garages and what have you, and no car travel through them. And I'll just give an example of near Kew, the Vic Road site, just south of the Vic Road site, there is a laneway there. and that gets an awful lot of traffic, foot traffic through there. And so those are the sort of laneways that we need to look at and preserve. I'm fully, that we do need to preserve them, but we can actually activate these more and make them more user-friendly spaces. So it's a matter of identifying them and creating a strategy as to how we will use those in future.
Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Glenys. I've got questions in relation to drains and the transition comment. To be clear, when you raise concern about the transition, particularly at crossovers, are you concerned when there's a single bluestone picture at the end, which is a very common treatment in Boroondara and what I understand to be the current treatment? Because in the Boroondara Bicycle User Group submission, there's photo of a crossover coming down to a 3-tiered bluestone. But does the single bluestone raise concern?
I think that bluestone is actually the crossover on the anniversary trail as you head up towards East Camberwell Station, and it's an example of where the mortar is actually breaking away, and it needs to be a smooth, safe transition.
Okay, but the single bluestone down treatment where you get to a concrete crossover, is that of concern?
One of the problems with that single bluestone is flat and often doesn't fit with the camber between the road and the drive, whereas a concrete drive can actually create a smooth transition. The problem we had was our back wheel would get in that single bluestone, and as we went over towards the footpath, our car would belly out. And we're not the only one who's having that issue, and this is because of that single bluestone going through the driveways. And it's not something that's always happened either. There's some streets some houses in our street that have the smooth drives, and then others that have this bluestone in the gutter.
I wonder if that's a maintenance issue or a street that needs treating. But look, I might ask that question of council officers, just noting that where I've seen the single down, it's been quite smooth, noting though that there is still some changes due to the bluestone. The other question, you've raised the issue of the grills not being suitable, but many of these grills went in to replace grills that had simply straight rails and bicycle wheels just went straight down into them and go down and over, having done that myself.
The ones I'm referring to are actually new. They've gone in the last year or two, where we had just like the slit drain, and the rain would run off into that. And these ones are appearing as like a new standard or something. They weren't there previously.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Not quite done yet, Glenys. Thanks, Glenys. I'm looking at a street view of a newly installed drain grill. Yep. It's a mesh type profile, which looks to me, in fact I know the street, quite suitable to ride a bike over. So whilst I appreciate your concern about any grill that extends into the road that is not suitable to traverse over with a skinny tyre, it appears that, at least in this case, and I would hope in future cases, real consideration is given to bike users to provide a drain grill profile that is quite suitable to traverse across. Am I missing something here, or?
Well, I'm conveying the concerns of a number of members, and the concern I have is that when they're wet, that with our wonderful plane trees, These just layer over the top of it. My concern is that would it have the effect of a hydroplane?
Oh, so it's more the leaves
Or the
on
leaves-
top of the
leaves on
drain,
top of the-
not so
and-
much the
and when
profile.
they're wet, yes, but a number
Right.
of the members have expressed concern.
My second question, if I may, Chair, you talk about the crossover between the road and the driveway, and that being an issue for bike users and for prams. My thought would be very few bikes roll up and down driveways and very few prams roll up and down driveways. Most would either be on the road or would be on the footpath. Am I missing
My
something?
concern is that roads like Summerhill Road, you've got a crossing at Toorak Road, you've got one at the bottom of the ditch, and then you've got one at Summerhill Road. I don't think there's any actual crossings anywhere else on that road. So you have to use the driveways.
Oh, you're talking, right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because there's no wombat crossings or any other suitable crossings, so
Yeah.
people scoot down a driveway, whereas in reality, if we made a better crossing for the road, then that would sort the
Yeah.
crossing issue.
Part of the issue is the streets are all offset, so it's a difficult one.
Okay, but broadly speaking, most people's private driveways aren't so much of an issue for bike riders, I wouldn't think, unless you're
Yeah.
going up and down driveways.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I think, like the people I've spoken to in our street, for example, most of them want the smooth driveways, not the bluestones.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Glenys. That exhausts our list of speakers for tonight, so we will now move back to officers for matters arising.
I'm going to ask a question first. Or just...
Yep. In regards to the rehabilitation of the road, so the figure of 9 kilometres per year refers to the full road reconstruction, which includes the renewal of both the pavement and the curb and channel. In addition to that, Council also resurfaces approximately 9 kilometres of asphalt roads annually, and where only the road surface is...
Abdullahi, are you able to move a bit closer to the microphone, please?
Yep, sure. Yeah, so I was talking in regards to the rehabilitation of the roads, the very first question. So the figure of the 9 Ks per year refers to the full reconstruction, full road reconstruction, which includes the renewal of both the pavement and curb and channel. Also, in addition to that, Council resurfaces approximately another 9 kilometres of asphalt roads annually, where only the road surface is renewed and the curb and channel is retained. So essentially, it's worth noting that all roads require full road reconstruction at the end of their surface life. Don't need full reconstruction at the end of their surface life, but the road network is overall in a good condition. In terms of the environmental aspects, so in developing the road policy, Council considered a range of factors, including life cycle costs, safety, heritage, functionality, environmental sustainability. So we do acknowledge that asphalt, like other construction materials, have environmental impacts, which can contribute to that. However, asphalt remains as the most commonly used surface in Metro Melbourne because of its durability, cost effectiveness, recyclability and suitability for our network. In terms of the recycled or reclaimed asphalt, Council uses about 20% of its mixes with recycled asphalt, and that reduces the usage of virgin material and supports that circular economy. Yep. In regards to the heritage citation with partial channel exposure, so the road material policy takes direction from the heritage citations within the Boroondara planning scheme, and these essentially provide the formal mechanism used to identify streets of heritage significance. So streets that are not currently cited, but potentially worthy of heritage citation, does not apply to the heritage treatment by default. With regards to the number of risk concerns or accidents, so we took into account the data from combination of community requests as well as within internal risk team, and that can be provided upon request. Just in regards to the George's question about different councils, so each council's got different infrastructure profiles, heritage, community expectations, and budget priorities. So while we monitor and learn from other councils, the policy reflects what's appropriate for Boroondara. And safety plays a big factor, ensuring that we're financially sustainable across a much larger road network. With regards to the single down, generally they provide a safer solution to the 3-to-1, particularly with the road gradients across the different road assets. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any questions for officers? Councillor John Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair. With your indulgence, I'll just ask 3 quick questions of officers. With regards section 4.5 of the report laneways, am I reading that correctly that the policy would be to maintain the laneways like for like on any renewal projects? And then a second clarifying question. Currently, we're saying 2/3 of our streets have bluestone. The bluestone streets that have heritage citations for the bluestone will be replaced like for like. Is that correct in my understanding? And then my final question of 3 is, what implications would a non-adoption of this policy have in terms of the volume of works awaiting on the 1/3 of streets that don't have bluestone and the streets that aren't heritage listed? Would delaying this policy have any significant impact on delaying works that are needed and required?
Good question.
Thank you, Councillor, and through you, Chair. The answer to the first 2 questions is yes. So the like-for-like replacement for laneways is considered as part of the policy. And the second question, yes, where there is a heritage citation, they would be replaced like for like. In respect to the third question, for example, the 25-26 renewal program has 33 sites for road reconstructions that would impact as well curb and channel. 24 of those have bluestone associated with them. So there's an immediate impact in a sense to the program as it is presented. To undertake more detailed heritage work will of course take time and would impact the deliverability of that program in the first instance.
Councillor Abuki.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to request an adjournment.
Councillor Abuki, are we able to adjourn after we finish questions for officers, or would you prefer that we immediately put that to a vote?
I would like to put...
Just noting there are a lot of councillors that have questions for officers.
Questions? Happy to do that after questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed, for addressing and responding to the questions and concerns of the gallery. Like Councillor Frempera, my question was about is this policy time critical? And I believe Mr. Freya has responded to that. I look, I might wait for the adjournment to sort of interrogate that a little bit more. My other question was with regard to Neve Street. Are we able to actually verify, is that covered by citation or not?
Through Chair, I'm unable to confirm the citation for that particular street immediately. We can certainly provide written advice back to councillors with respect to it.
Thank you. And if we could include, I believe it was Victor Hudson that asked that question. Thank you.
Through you, Mr Chair, I might just add to that, that if in fact the citation is correct, as has been suggested, then what this policy would say is that the current arrangement would remain in place. I think it's important to understand, and Councillor Nolan was, I think, attempting to draw that to attention earlier, but that would be the implication of the draft as it is.
Thank you. And I just thought if there was a way we could keep Victor Hudson's details on file, we could include in an email confirmation either way for his benefit. Thank you.
Councillor Nolan.
Thank you to the officers and to all the people who presented. There's always a balancing act in all of this around the items that are listed: safety, cost, heritage character, maintaining stock and quantum of bluestone pitches. The thing that I am a bit stuck on is in relation to spoon drains, and we've heard from two speakers in Neve Street around spoon drains, and it almost seems to me to be another special case. And I wonder, and this is without notice, so you may not have it to hand, but I'd love a couple of comments. Do we have any estimate of how many spoon drains there are in council? And secondly, I do remember a discussion about Neve Street, and I do remember the discussion went along the lines that when you have that many bluestone pitches, you do get a lot of drainage going through the drain, through the bluestone gaps. And so there was a concrete drain, I think, underneath to actually pick up.
Okay, Councillor Nolan, is there a question?
So the question is, first of all, do we know how much spoon drains we've got, and are they higher cost to maintain through that water permeability, tree roots, etc.?
Through Chair again, we'll take it on notice. There are not a great number of spoon drains that I would say across the city intact as they are, but we'll come back with a specific number in respect to those. The maintenance of spoon drains, like any curb and channel, requires regular attention to ensure the mortar is in place to allow water to flow rather than bog underneath and create other additional issues. Just the nature of the size of a spoon drain will require ongoing maintenance for its clearance and ensuring that water flows freely and away from properties in the roadway.
Councillor Osborne-Smith.
Thank you, officers, for your report, which is clearly very pragmatic and designed to balance a number of competing interests. But I think we've heard from the public tonight just how important our bluestone streets are for many people and for the preservation of what this city stands for. My question to you is, whilst I've read from the report, there's 523 kilometres of bluestone streets and 523 kilometres of streets with bluestone, and 2/3 of these have multi-pitches. I guess my question to you is, how many streets or how many kilometres of streets are actually protected by a heritage citation? We fully appreciate, I think, that those that are protected and will be replaced like for like. My question is really, what is the gap? What's missing? How many streets do we have that are not protected?
Thank you again through you, Chair. I believe the number is a significant amount less than the 523. I don't know the exact number, and we're just seeing if we can check that in the background immediately, and perhaps if we can provide that by the conclusion of this matter tonight, we will.
I reckon 5% would be. Would you care to have a guess?
Councillor Galt.
Thank you. Look, I just have a couple of maintenance questions. When the bluestone curbs become deformed over time, and I can tell you my car can attest to bluestones sliding out of alignment on a regular basis, do we do running repairs on those at all to draw them into line, or does it have to wait for major work on the roads before those are fixed?
Again, through you, Chair, no, we have a regular maintenance program. When they're raised with council as a typical maintenance request, they're attended to.
I'll give you a list. Can I ask another question, if you wouldn't mind, to do with maintenance? We had an issue where we lost a lot of bluestones because they were covered over with asphalt layers. And I understand from the report, the most common repair to our roads, if we catch them on time, is to put a wearing course down. And quite often to maintain the slope of the road that goes across the bluestone. Have we got an interim treatment where you can work on the subgrade just for a distance out from the curb, just to grade that down and retain the bluestone? If it's only the wearing course we're trying to build it up by, that might save a lot more of the larger bluestone gutters that we have now.
Through you, Chair, typically in each street, consideration is given to the design of the street and what treatment is required, and the condition of the running course, particularly how it can be taken off, and the grade and the base and the condition of the base underneath as well. So site by site there is consideration for treatment and the way and methodology to do that to either protect both the bluestone or concrete curb and channel if that is in place. Mr Chair, if I can also just add that in earlier to the question of Councillor Osborne-Smith, that 66 kilometres are in those listed precincts.
Of the 523, yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Franco.
Thank you, Chair. Just a few questions, if I may. Firstly, in relation to Neve Street, which is in Gardiner Ward, I'm going to ask my question predicated on the reality that Neve Street does not have a heritage overlay. It has a number of individually significant properties that have an overlay on those individual properties, but not a precinct. They're not part of a precinct overlay. So given that, and I appreciate that I'm not the planning director or, but taking that, if that's the situation, can officers confirm that the current policy would involve the replacement of the current spoon drain with a one up, one down? And is there a way within the current policy to address the concerns, given that council went out of its way to reinstate and restore that street with, the current bluestone drain? It would seem a little bit odd to then pass a policy that requires its removal. So is there any comment on that issue?
Through you, Chair, I think Neve Street's a very unique example in the sense that it is not a curb and channel. If it was a curb and channel, for instance, with one up and five down, then yes, that would move to a one up, one down, but it's not a curb and channel, so the replacement of it as a spoon drain is considered differently, and I imagine the time of the council replacing that work in 2010 when the existing policy, which says that a replacement would be one up, one down where there is a curb and channel, that would have been part of the consideration for the retention of the spoon drain profile.
Thank you. And just continuing on that vein of thought, I think you answered this before, but how many spoon drains of that type do we have in the municipality? And if we were to put a clause, and would our officers have any concern about a clause that prioritised a bluestone heritage study of those intact spoon drains? Would that cause detriment or undue detriment to the asset renewal program?
Through you, Chair, pending, obviously, Council allocating resource to undertake that study. The prioritisation of that would be appropriate in that case. I'm not aware in the early years of the renewal program whether we have any works in those streets with spoon drains, so I think that would be an appropriate prioritisation.
Thank you. And one final question, Chair. Ms Glenys-Jones from BBUG raised concern about crossovers and the single pitcher, including, not limited to, the single pitcher that is typical in many of our current asset renewal programs. Are there instances where where there is a more significant trip hazard in the way they're laid that causes a trip hazard or a car to get hinged on them? And I ask that given that it's not the experience that I see, where they're typically close to flat.
Again, through you, Chair, it's a difficult difficult question to answer in respect 60-odd thousand properties and a number of crossovers with those, and they're all in different locations with different topography as well. So I think to provide a very general answer to that is difficult. Where the conditions are flat and consistent, that may not pose as an issue. Where there is significant change in levels, that may be a problem.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Tawney.
A majority of my questions have been asked, but one that I'm still grappling with. So the cost per annum to retain the current width, so if it's a 3-channel width, we'd keep that versus the current policy, which is 1, is stated as $110,000 a year, which could go up to $160,000 a year once we run out of our stockpile. What's the cost? What happens with the bluestone, from what I understand, is that it's a very robust material, but the grout is the issue in terms of road maintenance. Is there a cost, with a lot of water, a lot of rain, a lot of flooding, is there a big difference between having the 3 width versus the 1 in terms of the ongoing damage to the road and the risk of potholes and having to rework the roads? Does that question make sense?
Through Chair, as I understand it, the road surface itself is subject to its own wear and tear and potholing and other issues that might come about that would affect its longevity, as opposed to basalt bluestone curb and channel, which is generally far less wearing insofar as it doesn't have high-frequency vehicles running across it like the main road surface. So it doesn't wear in the same way. It doesn't contribute to the wear necessarily of the asphalt road, and the asphalt road doesn't necessarily contribute to the wearing of the bluestone. There is a requirement around maintenance of mortar between bluestone as well to ensure that is kept in good condition so water doesn't penetrate in and under it, and certainly under the road.
That was my question.
As well.
And is it more of a risk of that happening with the 3-channel, with the 3 bluestone width versus the 1, or it's around the same issue in terms of the water damage that can happen?
Yes, it would certainly present a greater risk where there are 3 pitches, for example, compared to 1, because you have a greater surface area and a greater amount of mortar that has potential to decline through that.
But it's hard to quantify. But so the cost of kind of keeping our bluestone channels as they are is 110,000 a year at the moment, increasing to 160,000 a year.
That part of the program, yes.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair. So just coming back on this issue of bluestone curbs that are heritage protected. So what I've heard tonight, and correct me if I'm wrong, officers, 66 kilometres is heritage sited, which means 457 kilometres isn't. What I'm seeking some advice from officers on is what would be the quantum of work or the time taken to complete heritage assessments on the 557 kilometres prior to commencing any works on those?
Through Chair, I might invite my colleague Scott Walker from Urban Living to provide a comment if he may.
Thank you. Through yourself, Chair. That's a good question. It's something that perhaps would need a little bit of thinking and a little bit of advice on. The current proposal within the Heritage Strategy Action Plan is to propose a review of all of our areas of public roads and laneways to look at it from a heritage perspective in terms of the bluestone. I would expect that would be a 12-month process to go through that sort of assessment and review.
And one more follow-up, if I may, Chair. Would we have sufficient road renewal works to undertake to cover that period of 12 months before touching on any of those 457 kilometres, so that that heritage study could be completed while we continue with the 1/3 that aren't bluestone and the rest that have been covered already?
Through Chair, we've got a significant program of works. We audit our roads to understand their condition rating and prioritise the renewal program on that basis. We could make an assessment of that renewal program to determine what could be done for a 12-month period or 2-year period ahead. The issue that we need to be alert to and manage is the deterioration of those existing roads that are scheduled earlier in the program to ensure that they are replaced in a timely manner to not contribute to a further loss of road condition across the municipality.
Perhaps, Mr Chair, if I might just add to that to give some sense of the scale. I understand we have about 33 roads in the program for this year, 24 of which have bluestone in them. So the proposition which has just been put would have a significant impact. You're going to be looking for 24 streets not to be given attention and to find potentially 24 others at least to replace them.
Councillor Buki.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, I have 2 questions, and one is that I'm by no means a roads expert, but considering that we've heard from many people, many residents who would like to retain the look and the feel of the bluestones, are those stones durable enough that they can be, that they can be perhaps sawn in half so that we can manage to make our stockpile last as long as they can?
Through you, Chair, the way our roads are reconstructed is generally we try and reuse the same picture in its form. Generally they were cut at a time in a way to form that street. So you can't necessarily take everything out and then replace it with completely new bluestone and have the same feel. We extract bluestone out and put it in a stockpile, and we do cut where we need to then reuse those in other locations. but you can't effectively cut them in half and double the size. You still need to use the same number of pitches in a street.
Thank you. So my second question is then, and it's similar to Councillor Friend Pereira's question, given that we don't want to have a delay of 12 months before we complete the exercise of reviewing all of our streets for heritage citation, is there another proposal that you might have whereby we continue with the upkeep and the resurfacing of our roads and we don't miss any opportunities to conserve a road that is, that deserves heritage citation?
Mr. Chair, I'm going to suggest that if there's a desire to approach the question differently, that is not to simply adopt the recommendation put forward by officers, and you'd like to really understand what the implications of different options are, that the best approach would be to defer consideration of this item tonight. We want to be able to get on with the road program, as does our community. Councillors want to be able to make the best possible decision on all of the appropriate information being in front of you. What I'm hearing is that for some of you, there may not be enough information yet, and you want to understand more about the heritage study implications. So I'd like to suggest to you that perhaps a deferral with a time frame which gives us 4 weeks to come back to you, so we move quickly and we minimise the delay to the program. We understand what's being raised tonight, and I think we can do what's required in that period of time. Then you can make a fully informed choice as to how you wish to proceed.
Councillor Sinfield.
Thank you. Perhaps a simple question. I'm wondering if there is an alternate term by which spoon drains are known. I just don't see reference to them specifically in the policy, and I'm wondering whether are they called something else as well?
Through Chair, no, there isn't any other name. Typically, they'd be an open drain or spoon drain. If we can clarify that, subject to a deferral and reconsideration.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Franco.
Thanks. Just before we consider deferring, there is an alternate proposal that I've raised, which is to explore excluding spoon drains. And if spoon drains won't have any material impact on our asset renewal program, is there the possibility, and this is probably more of a logistical question, given that the Heritage Action Plan is out for public comment and includes a much wider recommendation relating to investigating the significance of council-owned bluestone, but is there a way of passing a resolution that is contingent on excluding spoon drains from being unmade until a study of those particular types of treatments is undertaken, subject to, it's a hypothetical scenario, subject to its approval by council at a separate meeting in relation to the heritage policy. It's a little bit convoluted, but it requires us giving consideration to that. And if we gave consideration to that and were of a mind to expedite such a study, with the exception of safety circumstances involving public safety, there might be the opportunity to just address that particular prominent issue.
Through Chair, again, subject to consideration of what the policy, absolutely, I think that's a reasonable consideration to make very clear in a future policy.
Thanks.
Councillor Galt.
If we don't know how many spoon drains we've got, and you've got 24 roads in heritage areas with bluestone that are scheduled this year. It isn't a, can I suggest, and can you answer if this is correct, it isn't a spoon drain issue. It's a full what we want to do with bluestone curbs and channel issue.
Through Chair, yes, the policy is really directed at a broader range of curb and channel.
Councillor Ibuki.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to move that we defer the meeting.
Councillor Ibuki, there are still questions for officers.
Okay, I would like to foreshadow that we defer the meeting.
Thank you. Councillors, are there any further questions for officers? There is one, Councillor Baillieu. He's been very silent all night. Look, I'm just conscious, officers, that we've had representation from heritage advocates here and cyclists. Were any efforts made to invite disability advocates to comment on this policy or speak to the safety aspects of appropriate drainage?
Through you, Chair, I'm just checking whether it was presented to the Disability Advisory Group committee meeting, and we're unsure at this point whether it was in 2024. I don't think beyond that there was any particular approach made to any disability groups or advocates in the community with respect to it beyond what was made available through the Burundara Bulletin and the fortnightly feed.
Is it possible that disability advocate groups may not have understood the implications of a policy as titled?
Through Chair, of course, that is possible, yes.
And can I confirm currently how much do we spend maintaining bluestone curb and how much, once our stockpile runs out, will we spend?
I can't confirm the annual spend of maintenance immediately. Again, we can provide that information to councillors.
Can you confirm if there's money in the budget for a heritage study as it relates to bluestone curbing?
Through Chair, in the 25-26 budget, there is not.
I understand that our bluestone is currently stored in a lot in Camberwell Junction. Do we know the value of that lot?
The Rose Street Depot site is where it's currently stored. I don't think we've had a recent property valuation on that site.
Okay, I think it's about 2,400 square metres in the centre of the junction.
One of the issues which needs to be contemplated in relation to the Rose Street site is that it is the former City of Hawthorn's depot site where they had trucks and various other equipment which would have contributed to some level of contamination. There is also a question mark as to the extent to which the previous landfill actually extended onto that site. And at this stage, that's not well known, that is the extent of it, and therefore the impact those factors have on the valuation is also not yet known.
Thank you, Phil. I'm just trying to understand the financial implications of support for bluestone heritage. It is a relevant concern. But I think that exhausts my questions. So, councillors, are there any final questions? There are none. Councillor Ibuki, I believe you might have had a motion.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I would like to move a motion that we defer the decision around the adoption of the road materials policy to another date to be decided.
Would it
Chair, sorry to ask, would it be better to lay the question on the table? I propose that to Councillor Ibuki.
Just a moment.
Perhaps while the matter's being addressed by our governance people, I might just suggest that one of the benefits of the deferral is that Councillor Ibuki could express the reason for the deferral. In other words, the deferral on the basis the Council is seeking further advice in relation to the implications of a heritage assessment being prepared as a precondition for finalising the policy. It might be something along those lines. But what you're doing is you're signalling to everybody that that's the basis upon which the deferral is being sought.
Chair, can I suggest an adjournment to address the wording?
I am happy to move towards an adjournment if Councillor Ibuki is.
Yes, I'll accept the adjournment.
In that case, I am looking for a mover of the adjournment, Councillor Sinfield.
So moved.
And a seconder?
Seconded.
I would like to put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? I declare the motion carried. We are now adjourned. For officers, I am in search of a motion. Councillor Ibuki.
Thank you. I'd like to move a motion that it's coming. Thank you. I'd like to move the motion on the screen there. Thank you. That we thank community members for their feedback on the draft road materials policy. We acknowledge the historical value our community places on Bluestone, and we defer consideration of the road materials policy to a services delegated committee meeting no later than September 2025.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Nolan.
So seconded.
To assist the mover, is anyone opposed? There is no one opposed. I will now put the motion to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? And I declare the motion carried. Councillors, we now move to general business. Councillors, are there any matters of general business? Councillor Friend Pereira.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to acknowledge that last week was NAIDOC week, and in the context of tonight's lengthy and detailed and often passionate discussion about bluestone curbing and concrete roads, I think it would be great to see that passion and that level of engagement coming from our community members and from councillors as we move forward with our heritage strategy, which will acknowledge the heritage and culture of the world's longest continuous culture going back 60,000 years, even if it doesn't have bluestone curbs and concrete roads. Thank you.
Councillor Tawney.
Thank you, Chair. I've got two quick items of general business. I have a question for council officers around our graffiti removal on private land. I understand we're putting in some changes around the process to try and remove hate graffiti within 2 or 4 hours of it being put up on private land. Is that correct?
Through you, Chair, yes. Council officers have been working through a change in our process to enable council contractors to work on private land accessible from ground level with a waiver or approval from the property owner to undertake those works. Our contract allows for us to endeavour to have those works undertaken within 4 hours.
Thank you for that. And the second item is around, I'm just wondering about the timing of a report on crime in Boroondara and what that report that's coming to council will entail.
Through Mr Chair, I expect that report will be forward in about 8 weeks.
And what are we looking at in that report? Is it about crime statistics or what council can do?
It'll go a little further. The crime statistics will certainly be there. In addition to that, we'll be speaking about the application of step-10 approaches, which council does as a matter of course in its initiatives, its projects. And we'll also be talking about community awareness programs which we have in place designed to try and help our community understand how to reduce the risk of crime in their homes.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to advise that Councillor Franco and myself have both been appointed to MAV, Municipal Association of Victoria advisory panels. Councillor Franco on climate futures, and he may want to speak to that himself, and myself on connected places and intergenerational matters. And with the committee that I'm appointed to, I'll have the pleasure of liaising with external members and other councillors where we will be discussing matters of future local project infrastructure, homelessness, Planning and Environment Act reforms, Housing Task Force and other matters that are very important to help shape not just Boroondara's future, but obviously the future of Victoria. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any final matters of general business? Councillor Tournay.
Sorry, I'm back again. Actually, Councillor from Pereira may want to speak to this, but there was a really great announcement today from the state government on social housing project in his ward, something that Councillor from Pereira has been working very closely with Matt Freegan, MP for Ashwood, and I'd like to congratulate him on his hard work in this space. And the announcement is, do you want to talk about it, Councillor from Pereira, the detail?
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for that. Just this afternoon, Matt Freegan, the member for Ashwood, state member for Ashwood, was able to confirm that some housing future funding from the Commonwealth Government has been allocated for the renovation or redevelopment of Alamein public housing. As I've said many times, Ashburton carries 3 to 4 times the public housing quantum of the rest of Boroondara, and with almost 6% of all housing being public housing. So it's a great sign that we will hopefully see an uplift in some new social housing in that area. So great collaboration from all colleagues in lobbying on that at council level, at state level and at federal level.
Councillor Franco.
Since Councillor Hollingsworth asked me to comment, I have been appointed to the Municipal Association of Victoria's Climate Futures Advisory Panel. It'll be chaired by Cathy Oak, and I'm very pleased about that. Thank you.
Councillors, are there any final matters of general business? There are none. We now move to urgent business. Councillors, are there any matters of urgent business? There are none. We now move to confidential business. Councillors, are there any matters of confidential business? There are none. Before I close the meeting, I want to thank all of you who have joined us for this evening, especially the members of the gallery. And I declare the Service Delegated Committee meeting closed.